Support for Donnybrook is provided in part by Design Air Heating and Cooling.
Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it. That's like any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Thank you for joining us for Donnybrook. Great to have you with us. And wow, do we have a lot of topics this week. We'll get to them. But first, let's meet the panelists, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Wiese. From the Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com, Bill McClellan. From the St. Louis Magazine and now host of the new 314 podcast, Sarah Fenske. And columnist and editor with the St. Louis American, Alvin Reid. Well, Bill, last week we were talking about Dennis Hancock, a member of the St. Louis County Council who had been accused of nepotism because he hired a relative. And no sooner did we speak, some of us saying, hey, maybe he should resign because it looks like he knew about nepotism according to emails unearthed by your colleague, Tony Messenger. Then the prosecuting attorney, Melissa Price Smith, dropped all charges. She said basically her office is not going to be used to settle political scores. And she also had trouble with the county councilor who was supposed to be representing Mr. Hancock, instead recording him and then sending that evidence to the prosecutor for his prosecution. So in other words, Hancock is off the hook as long as he pays his legal bills. What do you think?
Well, last week I had changed my original opinion. Originally I was for Hancock. Last week I courageously changed that and said he should resign. But I think Melissa Price Smith makes a good point that they've got bigger fish to fry than Hancock. And like you guys in opposition to me last week were saying, well, if Hancock has to resign, what about the health director? What about this? So I say give them all a clean slate, and I think that it's a good decision to just move on ahead.
I love the tone that Melissa Price Smith is striking. She doesn't have time for nonsense. She doesn't have time for playing politics. She gave us a laundry list of all of the things that her office is facing in terms of priority. I just really like her so far. However, I would say that there are those who will think that this does look like you're playing politics because of Tony Messenger's column. You had him, telling he wasn't telling the truth. He knew that nepotism was not something that he could get away with, and he also had to promise that he would never hire another relative. It's more like a clubhouse with decoder rings than the county government.
It's national, it's state, it's local. Now, everybody for law and order until I ain't got no time for law and order. And it's just like, okay, are we going to enforce laws or are we not? And she chose not to. And she can say whatever she wants to, but that's political. The reason you're not going after him is because this all stems back to we all hate Sam Page. This will make Sam Page look bad. So I'm going to make Sam Page look bad, even though you broke the law and got busted in a lie about it. So, right. All right.
I got to disagree with this. I think this was a bad case for the prosecutor's office, and I think a big thing here is they basically cut this nefarious plan he had to hire the stepdaughter. They cut it off before any public funds were expended. I think a jury's going to look at that like, why are you wasting my time on this? How many dollars went to this young woman? Now, that's in part because the county counselor got involved, taped this phone call, but from talking to lawyers, there were some pretty serious ethical issues there with her doing that. You can't tape your own client. So this is what, prosecutors would say, kind of a dog of a case. Yeah. I think she made a smart move by doing that.
What about the point you made against me last week, Charlie, that the health director, if we prosecute Hancock, don't we have to prosecute the health director?
And Joe Maroth, who's the mayor of Fenton now.
Neither one of them was, you're saying, should they be prosecuted? Yeah, but there was never a charge brought against them. So we don't even know if it could be substantiated.
For political reasons. We know her daughter was hired.
Right. I'm just saying there was no charge brought against her. By the way, Sarah, if I blow the vault open in a bank and the police come in there and say, hey, I didn't steal any money,
I think
I still robbing the bank.
I think Alvin.
In other words, what I'm saying is, as you were saying, like, oh, she never got paid. Well, that's not. So what?
Yeah,
she got
I
hired.
just don't.
But
Makes it.
I don't think she was upset with Sam Page. I think we have discovered this week, after a $500,000 settlement to a former employee of Wesley Bell, that Melissa Price Smith was no big fan of her predecessor, Wesley Bell.
Well, they're all in the same
yeah,
nest.
yeah.
That's the same thing.
Wendy, I want to ask you about Bob Clark, who gave $111,000 to the Political Action Committee supporting Cara Spencer, the St. Louis alderperson, in her attempt to become the next mayor of the city. $111,000 is a special amount because that's the amount he says he paid for his attempt to put a facility, a cement facility at 70 in Goodfellow, which was rejected by the St. Louis Development Corporation. This week, Mayor Tashara Jones gave an interview to Mark Maxwell of Channel 5 and said that Ms. Spencer should return the money, that Mr. Clark threw a tantrum because he didn't get things his way. What do you think?
I think that trillionaires are so sentimental. The fact that he gave $111,000, I mean, that is really sweet. He is somebody who has never shied in the same way that Mayor Jones and her father have never shied away from telling it the way they see it. Bob Clark is exactly the same way. And I don't think you can have, if you are the chief executive of a major metropolitan city like St. Louis, I don't think you can have an adversarial relationship with somebody like Bob Clark. He clearly feels like he has not received a lot of love, and he needs to be made to feel special. And I'm sorry, if I'm the mayor of the city of St. Louis, I'm going to be talking to him.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, look, okay, you can have an adversarial relationship with anybody in the city if you feel like, look, what you want to do is with your $111,000 is basically elect a mayor that'll let you do whatever you want to do, including put this concrete plant wherever you want to. But if I'm running for office, I will take all of the temper tantrum money somebody wants to give me. I don't like you, Wendy, so I'm going to give my temper tantrum money to Alvin Reid. I said I would keep the temper tantrum money. I mean, hey, I don't agree with everything Bob Clark does. I'm speaking as a candidate now. I don't agree with everything what Bob Clark wants either, but if he's going to give me this money, I think I'm going to keep this money.
Yeah, I don't blame Cara Spencer for wanting to keep this money, and I was very against this cement plant. I think the mayor was right to say that wasn't the right use for that neighborhood. But the idea of politicians should go around vetting each and one of their donors, they got to vet their staff, they got to vet the people working for them. These donations, once you get it, I think they should take it and spend it.
Let me ask you, what if a convicted felon, now out of prison, Jeffrey Boyd, former alderman, who was convicted of theft of honest services, bribery, when he was an alderman, he did give $300 to Cara Spencer, and I think that just for optics anyway, Ms. Spencer might want to say thank you, but we'll give the money to charity or something.
I honestly don't have a problem with that either, but I'm somebody who believes felons should be allowed to have their voting rights reinstated. I think they should be hired for jobs. I think once somebody has paid their time, I don't think they should be persona non grata.
I agree with that. Sir, but as far as running for office, the $300 isn't worth the bad publicity of, well, you're part of this group now. Because Louis Reid, I liked him. Jeffrey Boyd, I liked him.
Right.
But if I'm running a campaign, I'd say, fellas.
See, I agree with Sarah.
I don't want you.
I think that he is even. Even Steven, and he should be able to make that donation, and she should be able to spend that donation.
Okay, but I would be afraid of somebody's going to ask, Jeffrey, where'd you get $300 at? Ain't you bankrupt? Wait, where'd you get $300? And then they find out where the $300 came from, and now who knows, right?
He sold the citizens down the river for money.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
he was making decisions on behalf of the guys who gave him money.
For sure, and I get that for Tashara Jones, this is a good line of attack. I appreciate her making it, but I just think that's not really what the people of St. Louis care about. Who's given $300? Who's given $111,000? this helps Cara Spencer to have this money. I don't blame her for spending
Speaking
it.
of money, tomorrow, that's Friday if you're watching the program on Thursday, the St. Louis Board of Aldermen is once again going to consider, but I think this is the final time, Sarah, what's going to happen with the $290 million that the city got in a legal settlement with Stan Kroenke and the NFL. So it's, I think it was 250, 260. Now it's up to 290 with interest. The last time we spoke, people were talking about college education and child care and money for downtown St. Louis. The money for downtown St. Louis has been pulled back. I'm not sure about the money for child care, but with President Trump in office, now people are not having second thoughts, they're having third thoughts.
Yeah. So this is the first time that any formal plan for RAM spending is going to the full Board of Aldermen for discussion. So, get your popcorn ready. My colleague Ryan Kroll has spent the last couple days just talking to aldermen about what's up. And I think some of President Trump's actions earlier this week have given some real sort of cold feet to some people who might have been inclined to spend all this money right away, even if they disagreed on some of the specifics, where they're now saying, hey, we can't necessarily count on this federal tap to keep flowing the way that it did under Biden. They're a little concerned that a big chunk of this should maybe be put away for a rainy day, let it gain some interest. I think there was already some real dissension with this bill, some of the maneuvering on the part of the aldermanic president, Megan Green. They were already going to have a hard time getting the votes. It's going to be very interesting to see if they can get a majority tomorrow.
It'd just be interesting to me because, one of the administration's first thoughts was we should save some of this money for a rainy day. And everybody poo-pooed on that, including myself. I said, come on, let's spend it. But, 2020 hindsight, she may have been right. This is one of those things that I think back in the summer, a lot of people across the nation should have been saying, what if he gets elected? What's really going to happen? And I don't know if we were all pie in the sky-ish or whatever, but some of this ramifications should have been thought out in the first place. However, I think you go with this plan the way it was adopted. Give the downtown what they want. Just
You'd
do
spend it.
I'd spend it.
Well,
now I'm just saying, let's do it. We're down the path now. Let's finish it.
Well, when you talk about pie in the sky, that's the part that they probably should take out, like daycare for city workers and helping college funds in the future. Spend it on streets and garbage and police.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that's not in the plan. That
Right.
Now we're just let's approve. Because we're not going back. They're not going to change it and say, let's spend it on streets and all that, because then it's not going to get spent at all.
Well, the thing is, Trump might fund police. That's one thing he might fund. This week.
Like on Monday, when he defunded the police?
Well,
yeah, I used that saying.
Well,
right, that's what he did.
I think he might fund the police.
Right.
And I will also say Eric Schmidt was on Frank Cusimano's program this week on 550. And Frank asked Senator Schmidt, sending all these migrants back by plane, that's pretty expensive, right? And then Eric Schmidt said, hey, money is not an object when it comes to the security of this country. So I think that Trump and senators, Republican senators in D.C., will spend money on some things, so the city has to decide what that'll be and then put the money in other things that they won't, like college or daycare or something.
Meanwhile, like I said, he signed executive orders that take money from the police and homicide investigations. So you're going to rely on that, huh?
I think he'll fund the police. I do.
Yeah, the shift away from downtown, that's going to cause I think that's going to cause some trouble. Pam Boyd was very honest last week with saying that we're not, she was kind of skirting or using her language, wordsmithing very carefully. We don't have a deal. We hope we have a deal. We don't have a deal. So you're right about the popcorn for tomorrow.
I think downtown will get every penny that was promised to them.
Well, because they're doing dollar for dollar match.
Yeah.
So, Alvin, I want to ask you about Judge Ryan Helfrich of Franklin County, who gave one Emily Hernandez a 10-year prison term. Hernandez, we've talked about her in the past. She was one of those January 6th rioters in Washington, D.C. Then 2 years later, she drove drunk and killed a woman with her automobile. So her sentencing was this week, and Judge Helfrich gave Ms. Hernandez 10 years. Too much, too little, or what do you think?
I would have given her, I guess the full would have been 17 because it was 2 counts. It would have been more than 10. Maybe not the full 17. I don't know how you work that. If maybe it's either or, then she gets the full 17. This is menace to society. proven once again. And I'm sorry, but look, you did something, and Billy wrote a column. I noticed that I didn't even know why I was there. Well, you were there, and you got arrested, and you were going to get charged and all that. Then, while awaiting, I guess, sentencing, you did this. I'm sorry. You earned every one of those 17 years. Is 10 enough? Yeah, I guess so. But no, she should have got the other 7.
Hey, I'll agree with that. I think 10 years was a fair sentence. What Emily Hernandez did, getting so drunk that you go on the highway the wrong way. She killed a young mother, of 2 young children. And it's just a heartbreaking story because I thought Emily Hernandez was just a, nice small town kid working at the pizza shop. And her uncle said, Emily, how would you like to see D.C.? Come with us. We'll have you back tomorrow. And it was a terrible thing, but I thought she was a nice kid, and nice kids can do terrible things, drunk driving, but there's a price to pay. I agree with you, Alvin.
Yeah, I mean, terrible things, killing somebody. To me, 10 years feels right. What happened when she got apprehended after January 6th, that should have been the wake-up call. Yeah. And she didn't take it. And so I don't know that you have to stack these terms, give her 17 years. It feels like 10 years, that's going to get her attention. Hopefully she can clean up her life and come out from behind bars.
Like she said in court, what I did was an ungodly thing, and I'll live with the shame of it forever.
Yeah. But I'm glad that you made that point, Bill, because we all like to think we've all seen too many prison movies or crime movies that the prisons are filled with bad people who were born. No, the prisons are filled with good people too who made really awful decisions in a split second.
I
Maybe not great.
I wouldn't say filled.
Not filled.
I'm a 98%er. 98% of the people in prison need to be in prison.
Okay.
Well, but thanks to DNA evidence, we have found that Wendy is right.
I understand that. I was going to say
Absolutely.
98% need to be where they at.
Alvin, you're a sports columnist for the St. Louis American. Please explain for us what the heck is going on. Vashon High School has announced that on Friday nights, the games will only be attended by parents, players, referees, and coaches. No college scouts, no fans from the school. And this is, of course, because I don't think at Vashon, but at some high schools, there's been a lot of violence, like at Cardinal Ritter recently. Then at the same time this week, during the VCU SLU game, CBS Sports just carried for 10 minutes a fight in the stands behind the VCU bench at a SLU game, Billikens basketball.
On national TV.
What is... I know, and it made national news.
Right.
What is going on?
Yeah, well, okay. My understanding of what happened at SLU, there was a young man who had gone to Vashon who had played at SLU. Then he transferred to another college before transferring to VCU. He's now on VCU. All right. So behind the bench are his parents and friends. All right. People are heckling the kid. I'm told that the mom had finally had enough, said something. Whatever ensued after that, to where it just came to blows and tumbling down the steps and all that, I don't know. But that was a shameful scene. But the reason that CBS Sports Network was trapped, because there was 1 minute and 10 seconds left in the game. And by contractually, you can't leave it. And also, I don't think the other game, which was the West Coast game, I don't think it had started yet. There were no commercials. So they were stuck. They had to basically stay there and hey, it's brawl coverage now. I think Earl Austin and Bob Ramsey, who do radio commentary, it was at an angle from them where they really could not see. And just like we're tethered right now, they were too. So it wasn't like they could get up and walk out and gawk. So they said, we're just kind of not going to comment because we really can't see, which was true. They weren't begging out of covering the brawl in the stands. They really couldn't see what was going on.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I found it entertaining. I was watching it. And, more bad news for St. Louis. I get that. Yeah. But entertaining to see these people out of control. But I was surprised they kept the camera on the fight, Alvin. Instead of eventually they moved it over to watch the players just standing there because they didn't want to give these people, it's like if you run on the field in a baseball game. They usually won't show up.
I'm like everybody else. I mean, a lot of other people, not everybody, but who I just watched the clip when the story broke, and one thing that was just endlessly humorous to me was one of the national television commentators. I don't know who it was, but he said, well, that's a shame. And in the background, you see see these people like ripping each other's heads off. He said, well, that's a shame for St. Louis because I think we're going to wrap this up nicely. And everybody, it's like the cow is out of the barn.
It was out.
The animals.
And he did say, we usually don't show like this, but he was trapped. No one knew that.
Nobody knew.
They can't go
It's one of those why we can't have nice things.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Sarah and I come from a city where they once had a riot on 10-cent beer night.
That's right.
Yeah.
At Cleveland Municipal Stadium when they ran out of beer. So maybe these things aren't all that new.
I don't think they're new at all. It kind of breaks my heart, though, that St. Louis is getting this black eye out of this incident because I've started taking my kids to SLU basketball games. I've got 2 little girls who are just basketball crazy. We don't have this NBA team here. It is such a good, family-friendly, safe, fun atmosphere in there. I was just shocked to see this.
And Jackie Joyner-Kersee was there.
know.
So was Rich
Right.
Chaffetz.
And the thing is that, not funny, but anyway, St. Louis University versus Virginia Commonwealth University. You're not thinking they're going to be brawling in the stands.
Right.
All right. Now, maybe our most important topic of the week, we go to Shrewsbury with our etiquette expert, Wendy Wiese.
God.
Wendy.
God forbid.
There's a story in the Webster Kirkwood Times that in Shrewsbury, one family put their garden in the front yard because the side yard and the backyard have no sunshine. And some local animals were getting into the garden, so they put a 4-foot enclosed structure around it. So it's a raised garden in a box form. You've seen those. But it's on the front lawn. And while the neighbors seem to be okay with it, city mothers and fathers are not. They say that if it's going to be raised, it can only be 24 inches. This one is 48 inches. Do you think that such a garden belongs in the back, or given that it's good for our health and the environment, all of us should be planting in our front yards?
Well, Charlie, when you're stressed out, when you're doing yard work, you might as well put a sofa and a coffee table in your front yard and take a little nap or take a little rest in the front yard where you can get some sun. And, while I'm being facetious, obviously, but rules are rules. And believe it or not, even though I don't look like much of a rule follower, I know I look like a real rebel, Sarah, because I do live in wild Chesterfield. But no, seriously, cut the trees down. I mean, it looked, and I feel sorry for them because I understand that it was a health issue and that they're trying to eat healthier. But if you choose to live in a municipality, you have to abide by the rules of the municipality. I feel for them. I truly do. But you might have to knock a couple of trees down to have your raised garden, your 48-inch raised garden.
But okay, I could have a basketball court in my front yard, but I can't have like
Probably
a
not.
48-inch raised
I don't think you could.
I don't think
All right,
you could.
I think this is Shrewsbury needs to readdress this and say like, all right, we're gonna allow 48 inches because it's there, and we'll grandfather this one in. But from now on, you have to now make your case as to why this has to be.
And if that happens in Kirkwood, Your Honor?
Quite frankly, if I had to testify on behalf of somebody that had a 48-inch raised bed, I'm with the farmer, the gardener.
You also there's another factor in this story that the reason they had to put the fence around it was because the neighbor had a cat,
Right.
and the cat was roaming free. And we know Alvin has Reuben. And I think Reuben runs free.
Reuben has seen some signs. That's all I can say. We try, but
No further questions, Your Honor.
And you're probably okay with it because the stepdaughter, who was going to come over and help them garden together.
Well, Melissa Price Smith is not going to charge those people.
right.
Count on that.
Hey, Reuben is fixed, so Reuben ain't out there making
That's
baby
more
kittens.
information that we needed about Reuben.
I just want to say I think this is absurd. I wish we could
I
all have
know
these
you do.
Shrewsbury problems. Like, come on. This is what they have to spend time on. I wish you'd worn your pearls.
Builds a greenhouse and I'm not clutching
You're
any
clutching
pearls.
your pearls, Wendy.
I'm not clutching any pearls. But if somebody builds a greenhouse in their front yard and people are looking at houses, it's going to cost a couple of sales. In
Wendy,
your
you've
neighborhood.
seen a picture of that. It's not a greenhouse.
No, I'm saying, but
yeah.
why
But if they
not?
did.
If you have a fort, I mean, if we're relaxing the rules,
slippery slope
the slippery
argument.
slope.
This would probably
exactly.
raise property values in the city
I don't
where
know.
I live.
Yeah, but it sounds like they got like a stage with a stripper pole on it or something. It's a garden.
Right.
It's a garden.
I have a question. Was Wendy lying when she said, I feel sorry for these people?
Oh, I do. They want to be healthy. They don't have enough sunlight on the side of the house, or I guess in the back of the house. Do what the rest of
We
us
have
do.
shade
Knock
issues
down,
too. Seriously, there are places where we
knock
have to
down,
plant.
knock down a tree.
I think Wendy
No.
brings up some good points because you can't have. If you're investing, most of your fortune into a house, you can't have anything going at the house next door. But I think in this case, I think the future is people will plant vegetables in their front lawns for
People
health
Look at
and
the
environmental
solar
reasons.
backyard.
Look at
Yeah.
the solar panel debate. How many
good point. That's
HOAs
a good point.
went berserk over solar panels?
And your words will be the last ones for this week's episode. But first, let's go to the old mailbag. After the last two Donnybrooks, let's just give up. Let us outsource city government by hiring a city manager. Let's outsource control of the police. Let's follow Charlie's advice and get more businessmen and women in positions of power, like the bankrupt business developer of the now closed St. Louis Armory. That from Frank Medica of Maryville, and we thank him. Carol Prombo of St. Louis wrote, Wendy pointed out that in past decades, drivers adapted to roads that had not been cleared of snow by leaving early to allow extra time. An additional practice was to use chains on vehicle tires. Marion Miller wrote, I have to agree with Alvin. What is the reason for the state taking control of the city police? When the state was in control, we didn't have great crime stats. Ms. Miller lives in St. Louis. And I agree with the lady requesting Donnybrook last call to follow the regular Donnybrook on 9 PBS. A lot of us don't like going to YouTube to watch a program. That from Gail Malter of St. Louis. You can write us, care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street. Don't forget those emails, Donnybrook at 9pbs.org. On social media, use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. We also want to hear from you. Call the 9 line at 314-512-9094 and listen to us on your favorite podcast source. And don't forget to watch 9 PBS's YouTube channel for Last Call, where we get to topics we didn't have enough room to broach on the first 28 minutes. So we hope you go to Last Call. It's going to be posted within seconds. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.